Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey through a story that's chilling and shrouded in mystery. It's called Dead and Reborn. This isn't just your ordinary ghost story, because what happened, it made me question, what is death, really? And sometimes, the things that come back from death, are they still the people we once knew? I'll warn you now, this story might keep you up at night. Are you ready? Alright, let's begin. This story takes place in a small village, a quiet, peaceful place surrounded by dense, green forests. Towering trees block out nearly all sunlight. The silence here, it feels alive, like it's hiding something. I once heard the elders say, this forest holds many tales, stories of people who vanished, of strange sounds in the dead of night. But no one dares speak of them, because they fear, speaking of it might awaken something. And sometimes, I feel like the forest is watching us, with eyes we can't see. This village, it's like it's cut off from the outside world. No major roads, no cars, just narrow paths winding through the woods. The villagers live simply, growing vegetables, raising animals, and telling old stories under the moonlight. But the stories they tell, they always end with a warning, don't go into the forest at night. Don't answer if you hear your name called. As a child, I thought they were just scary tales, but now, I know those warnings had a reason. In this village, there was a woman named Saipin. She was beautiful, kind, and had a smile as radiant as the sun. Whenever she smiled, it was like the world lit up. She loved to sing, her voice so enchanting that people said it was like a song from heaven. Some nights, she'd sing at the village square, and everyone would gather to listen, forgetting their exhaustion, forgetting their fears. But, let me tell you, Saipin's life was far from ordinary. Saipin arrived in the village 10 years ago. No one knew where she came from. She appeared one morning, soaked from the rain, carrying a small basket. She said she was lost and asked to stay for a while. The kind villagers took her in, but from that day on, I felt something shift. Saipin had a past no one knew. She never spoke of her family, her hometown, and sometimes I saw a look in her eyes, like a shadow was hiding there, like she was carrying a heavy burden. The villagers loved Saipin dearly. She was like an angel to them. She'd sew clothes for the children, help the elderly with their gardens, even light the fires for nighttime gatherings. Everyone said, without Saipin, the village would feel empty. She brought light to us all. But there were a few who looked at her with suspicion. They whispered behind her back that Saipin might not be entirely human. I once overheard an elder say, that girl, there's something different about her. He didn't explain further, but those words stuck with me. Sometimes, I'd see Saipin walking alone, staring into the forest, as if listening to something. I asked her once what she was looking at. She smiled and said, just the wind, it speaks to me." I laughed, thinking she was joking, but now I'm not so sure. Those words, they felt like a clue, a hint of what was to come. Years ago, on a night no one can forget, the rain poured heavily. Thunder roared, and the wind howled, bending the trees. The entire village seemed swallowed by darkness. That night, Saipin disappeared. No one knew where she went. She was the kind of person who always told someone if she wasn't home, but that night, she vanished without a trace, without a word. The villagers were frantic. Everyone searched for her, braving the storm, shouting her name, their flashlights piercing the darkness. But there was no sign of her. It was as if the forest had swallowed her whole. I remember standing outside my house that night, staring into the woods, and feeling like something was staring back. It wasn't just a feeling, it was heavy, like a pair of eyes hidden in the shadows. 3 days passed, hope began to fade. People started to believe Saipin might never return. Some said she got lost in the forest. Others whispered she might have been attacked by a wild animal. But no one dared mention the darker possibilities. I was scared too, scared we'd never know what happened. Until the morning of the third day, a young cowherd ran back to the village, pale as a ghost. He said he found Saipin's body, lying still in the deep forest. Everyone rushed to see, and what they saw, it broke their hearts. Saipin lay on the ground, her body cold, no breath left in her. She was dead. No wounds, no signs of a struggle, it was as if she'd simply fallen asleep. Her face was still beautiful, like she was having a pleasant dream. But her silence, it told everyone, she was gone. The villagers stood around her body, no one dared speak. There was only the sound of sobbing, and the rain that never stopped. I remember, when I saw her body, it felt like the world stopped. Saipin was the one who made everyone smile, and now, she was gone. I stared at her face, wondering what could have caused this. It made no sense, it wasn't fair. But what struck me as strange, was the faint smile on her lips. It was as if she knew what was coming. Saipin's funeral was simple. Everyone came to pay their respects. The children placed her favorite flowers, small white blossoms, around her coffin. She'd once said they reminded her of her hometown. The adults shared stories of her kindness, how she helped a lost child find his way home, how her singing made everyone forget their sorrows. Everyone wept, because Saipin was the light of the village. But I felt something, like a pair of eyes watching, from the shadows. I turned to look, but there was nothing. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just grief. But that night, after everyone returned from the funeral, strange things began to happen. Someone in the village said they saw a dark figure wandering outside Saipin's house. It wasn't just a shadow, it felt alive. And worst of all, those who saw it said, it had Saipin's face, but its eyes, they were empty, like there was no soul behind them. I got chills hearing this. How could it be? Saipin was dead. We saw her body in the coffin. We saw her buried. So what was this? I tried to convince myself it was just imagination, or maybe the shadow of a tree. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. And what happened next made everything even clearer. The next day, things got stranger. The village children started saying they heard crying coming from the forest. The sound, it was like Saipin's voice, gentle but filled with sorrow. Some kids said the voice called their names. But when the adults went to check, there was nothing. No footprints, no traces. It was as if the sound floated in the air. And that wasn't all. Some adults began dreaming of Saipin. She stood in the corner of their rooms, silent, motionless, just staring. It was terrifying. They wondered, why was Saipin still here? Some said, in their dreams, she smiled, but it wasn't her smile. It was cold, a smile that hid something sinister. I started to feel the village had changed. The peaceful silence, it had turned oppressive. Everyone was afraid. No one dared go into the forest at night. Children were told to stay indoors. Adults kept lanterns burning all night, fearing that, if the darkness came, something else would come with it. I was scared too, every time I heard the wind. I'd jump, afraid it might not just be the wind. But the event that shocked everyone happened on the 7th night, the night when people believe spirits return to visit the living. That night, Saipin, she came back. Yes, she walked into the village, drenched, pale, but alive. She smiled, greeted everyone as if nothing had happened. Everyone was stunned. They had seen her body in the coffin. They had buried her. So what was this? I stood there, staring at her, and I felt it. Something was wrong. My heart pounded, my body knew, this wasn't Saipin. She looked like Saipin, walked like Saipin, spoke like Saipin, but something made me feel she wasn't human. Saipin said she'd just gotten lost in the forest. She didn't remember much. She said she woke up in the woods and walked back. She spoke calmly, like it was a normal story. But I saw her eyes. They weren't the eyes of the Saipin I knew. Her smile, it was cold. Her gaze, it pierced through everything. And strangest of all, she never slept. People saw her sitting, staring at the sky all night, without blinking. Sometimes, she'd sit still, like she was listening to something. And sometimes, she'd turn to look at whoever was watching her, with a gaze that felt like she knew everything. I remember, one time, I passed by her house, and saw her standing at the door, staring at me. She didn't speak, didn't smile, just stared. It made me feel I shouldn't be there. After Saipin returned, the village was never the same. People started falling ill with no explanation, high fevers, trembling, but the village healer couldn't find a cause. Children said they heard whispers at night, voices calling their names, waking them in the dead of night. Some adults found wet footprints in their homes in the morning, but no one knew where they came from. And most importantly, people in the village began to disappear, one by one, without a trace, without explanation. The first was Uncle Cam, the man who told ghost stories to the kids. He vanished after saying he saw Saipin walking into the forest late at night. The second was a young boy who had said he heard Saipin's voice calling him. The third was Grandma Kay, the woman who once said Saipin wasn't human. Every time someone disappeared, someone would see Saipin walking in the forest at night, holding something in her hand. It looked like a knife, or maybe something else. No one dared ask, because everyone was terrified. Terrified she wasn't Saipin. Terrified she was something else hiding in her body. I was scared too, but my curiosity was stronger. I had to know what was happening. I remember one of the village elders, he had warned us. Those who die and come back, they're no longer human. He said, sometimes a soul is pulled back, but what returns might not be the same soul. It could be something nameless, something that lives in the shadows. He said, this forest held an ancient power, dangerous and old. He told us, decades ago, something similar happened. A woman died, and returned, and after that, the village was nearly wiped out. Chilling, right? I started to wonder, did Saipin know about this? She once told me, as we sat under a big tree, that she'd dreamt of this forest since she was a child. She dreamt of a stone altar, of whispers calling her name. She said, those voices felt like they were pulling her in. Back then, I thought it was just a dream, but now, I'm not so sure. Maybe Saipin was chosen, or maybe she chose to embrace it. One day, I decided I had to know the truth. I followed Saipin. That night, she walked into the forest, deeper and deeper. I tried to follow as quietly as possible, afraid she'd notice. She led me to a clearing no one had ever seen, and there was an old stone altar, surrounded by bloodstains. The air reeked of iron. It made me want to gag. Saipin stood in the center, staring at the moon. Then she began to speak, but not in a language I understood. It sounded like a curse or some kind of chant. Her voice, it changed, deeper, colder. It made me feel I shouldn't be there. I was terrified, my legs wanted to run, but then she turned and looked at me. Her eyes, they weren't human. They glowed red, and she smiled, a smile that told me I wouldn't survive. I ran for my life. Her laughter echoed behind me. It wasn't Saipin's voice. It was the voice of something I didn't want to know. That sound, it rang in my head, like it would follow me forever. After that night, Saipin disappeared again. But this time, no one looked for her. Everyone knew she wasn't Saipin anymore. The village returned to its quiet, but it was a quiet filled with fear. Because some nights, people still heard crying from the forest, and sometimes, the shadow of a woman would appear at their windows, watching, then vanishing. But the story doesn't end there. Months later, someone found the stone altar in the forest again. This time, strange symbols were carved into it, like ancient runes. No one knew what they meant, but an elder said, it might be a ritual to summon something from another world. And Saipin, she might have been just a vessel for something we shouldn't know. He said, if we destroyed the altar, it might unleash something worse. But if we did nothing, it might return. Time passed, the village tried to forget. But every time it rained heavily, every time thunder roared, everyone fell silent, afraid she might come back. And this time, she might not come alone. I've asked myself, if I saw Saipin again, would I dare ask her what she really is? Or would I run, like I did before? But what haunts me more is what the elder said. He told me, Saipin might not have been the first. In the past, others had died and returned, and each time, the village lost people. It's like something in the forest wants something from us, something hungry. He said, 100 years ago, a young woman died in the forest and came back. She took the entire village with her, leaving no trace. And that stone altar, it's been there since then. I started to wonder, is this village cursed? Or maybe, we're the ones who woke it up. I thought about Saipin's words, about her dreams of the forest, about the whispers she heard. Maybe, she knew from the start what she'd face. Maybe, she accepted it, to protect others. Or maybe, she was part of it. Years later, I left the village, because I couldn't bear the fear anymore. But Saipin's story followed me. I dream of her often, her smile, her glowing red eyes. And sometimes, I feel like a shadow is watching me, a shadow that never speaks, but I know, it's there. I started to think, maybe what happened to Saipin wasn't just her story. It might be a warning not to meddle with things we don't understand. But what scares me most is a few months ago, I heard news from the village. Wet footprints appeared in homes again. Children started hearing whispers, voices calling their names. And most importantly, someone saw a woman's shadow, walking in the forest, a shadow with Saipin's face. It made me wonder, did she ever really leave? Or is she still there, waiting for something, waiting for someone? I started researching, reading old records, talking to people who once lived in the village. I found that forest has a long history. Stories say, long ago, a group performed rituals in the woods, rituals tied to death and resurrection. They believed, if they offered something to the forest, it would grant great power. But what they didn't know was that what they awakened wasn't power, it was darkness. One record said, that stone altar, it was built to seal something. But every time someone died near it, that thing would awaken, and it would use the body of the dead to walk in this world. I started to think, Saipin might have been a victim, or maybe she chose to face it, to stop it. But if that's true, why hasn't it ended? I went back to the village last year. I needed to know what was happening. The village was quieter than ever, fewer people remained. Many had left, out of fear. I walked to the forest, to the stone altar, and what I saw, it took my breath away. The altar was covered in blood, and around it were white flowers, the flowers Saipin loved. It was as if someone had placed them there, as if to say, she's still here. I stood there, and felt a cold breeze, chilling to the bone. And I heard it, a whisper, calling my name. I turned, but there was nothing. I ran out of the forest, and swore I'd never go back. But deep down, I know, it's not over. And maybe, it's followed me. This story taught me, death isn't always the end. Sometimes, it's just the beginning of something we don't understand. And maybe, the scariest thing isn't ghosts, but the secrets hidden within people. What do you think? If you met Saipin, would you dare ask her what she really is? Or would you stay silent and hope she doesn't see you? Thank you for listening to the end. Tonight, be careful of the shadows at your window. And if you hear a whisper, don't answer. Because maybe, it's not Saipin calling you. And if you dream of the forest, don't walk into it. Because something is waiting for you. And maybe, it's been waiting for centuries.